Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Josh Bongard, and as seems to be the theme in the recent past, expect the unexpected. So my normal setup here does not seem to be working this morning. I'm only a computer science professor. I have only 3 advanced degrees in computer science. Apparently it wasn't enough to work out all of this tech. So I will be projecting from here this morning. I'm using the local PC. Nobody breathe too harshly. Let's hope everything holds together this morning. Okay, here's what we're going to do this morning. We're going to spend 95% of the time this morning just going over logistics, how we run this course, what you can expect from myself and from the TA, Krishna, and what we're going to expect from you. Every lecture, obviously, we are here in person. I sent you all around the survey. Most of you wanted in-person instruction, so here we are. Some of you would prefer remote instruction, so I am also recording every lecture. I will put it up on YouTube immediately after class. So if for some reason you can't make it to class or you want to review the material, all the lecture material will be on YouTube after class. Assuming that I successfully record lecture. So I'm going to advance the slides on the local PC today, and I'm also advancing them on my own laptop down here, which I am recording. And I just realized that my laptop is not plugged in yet, so give me one moment to plug it in, and we'll get started. Okay, all right. Can everyone in the back row read the text under description? That's large enough? Okay. As we move around in the slides, if something is too small, someone in the back row just yell out and I'll magnify it, okay? All right. So as I mentioned, I'm Josh Bongard. Josh is fine. We're obviously here in E430 Tuesday and Thursday mornings. I am a morning person. You may not all be morning persons, but here we are. Okay. The TA for the class is Krishna. Krishna is trying to make his way back to Vermont. He's not here yet. He will be here in person in class if you need him. He will also post office hours. My office hours are remote. I have a very little one at home who is unvaxxed, so I'm going to try and minimize personal contacts. So for office hours, this is how we're going to do them. If you click on this link, it will take you to a spreadsheet with instructions. And I've got to remember to do it here as well. It'll take you to a spreadsheet, and you'll see the instructions about how to sign up. So you can see I had to cancel my office hours for today, Tuesday the 18th. But tomorrow I have office hours from 2 to 3. You can see several people have already signed up. Tomorrow at 2 to 3, Mahan's name there will become in bold, and that's me and Mahan meeting on Teams. When I'm finished with Mahan, I will strike out his name, and Blake, I will DM or email him or her, indicating that I'm ready, and I'll send them a Teams link. Blake and I will meet. I'll strike out Blake, and on to the next student. Sound good? Some of you are here. If you're a UVM student, we will meet on Teams or Zoom. We'll see. There's some external students as well. With them, I'll meet on Zoom. Below this spreadsheet are all the dates for the remainder of the semester. Just feel free to sign up for any date. Obviously, just put your name at the end of the line. And if I don't get to you in that office hour, just delete your name and move it to the next office hour. Sound good? Again, not ideal, but we'll do the best we can. Can everybody back there hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, great. Okay, so hopefully most of you have read this before. This course will explore the automated design of autonomous machines. You're going to see that in this course, we're going to explore 2 different levels of autonomy. We'll start with the subject of this sentence here, autonomous machines. We're going to be looking at robots that are not remote controlled. They are in their own control. They are taking in sensory information from the world, processing it internally, and then using that internal processing to drive their motors to decide how the robot acts. So this is known as the sense, think, act cycle. The robot is going to sense, it's going to think, it's going to act, and the moment that the robot acts, its relationship with its environment changes, which means its sensor values change, which means the way that it thinks change, and around you go. So in the first few weeks of this semester, you're going to be creating a virtual robot that is autonomous. It is going to sense its virtual world. It is going to think. It is going to send commands to its virtual motors, which is going to alter this virtual robot's relationship with its virtual environment. And around we go. That's the first level of autonomy, no remote control. We are going to wrap around your autonomous machine, around your virtual robot, we are going to wrap some AI. It's a particular kind of AI known as an evolutionary algorithm, thus evolutionary robotics. And that evolutionary algorithm is going to search over all the possible ways of modifying your virtual robot so that it does a little bit better at whatever you want the robot to do. So the evolutionary algorithm is going to automatically design or automatically optimize or automatically train your autonomous machine. And we're going to see lots and lots of different versions of this inner and outer loop. You're going to be creating this simple two-level system in this course. We're going to look at many more complicated and sophisticated systems as we go. Okay, that's about as simple as I can summarize the class. That's what we're going to be doing. Okay. Along the way, you're going to see that this course is very broad and not necessarily very deep. In order to make all this happen, we're going to cobble together different pieces of technology from different places. We're going to look at evolutionary computation, as I just mentioned, which is a form of optimization. Professor Nick Cheney teaches a sister course to this class called Evolutionary Computation, Evolutionary Algorithm, Evolutionary Computation. Okay, for those of you that are specifically interested in EC, check out Professor Cheney's course. Obviously, there are several deep learning and neural network courses here at UVM. We're going to do a little bit of artificial neural networks in this course. We're going to basically treat them as a tool. We're not going to investigate ANNs in and of their own right. We're going to be using them. We're going to spend obviously a lot of time talking about robots themselves. What is a robot? What isn't a robot? We're going to look at biomechanics. You're going to see that in a lot of different evolutionary algorithms projects. We draw inspiration from nature. We're going to look in particular at how animals get themselves from point A to point B. Movement and locomotion, object manipulation, action is a foundation of robotics, which is different, somewhat different from AI. We're also going to spend quite a bit of time looking at physical simulations, physics engines, which you find in most modern video games. You're going to be using a relatively simple one in this course. And then finally, we're going to look at computer-designed organisms towards the end of this course, more popularly known these days as xenobots. Okay, students will conduct a major Python programming project. This is a programming-intensive course. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about the first programming project. You're going to get a chance to start in on that today or tomorrow. Use between now and next Monday evening, which is when the first programming assignment is due, use this first week to see whether this course is right for you. If you find that you're struggling with some of the coding or some of the installation issues you need to do this week, this course might not be the right course for you. Okay. Undergraduates, what you're going to do is you're going to spend the next 10 weeks implementing a weekly programming project. So there are 10 weekly programming projects. Undergraduates and graduate students, you're both going to be doing that over the first 10 weeks. In the final 4 weeks of the semester, the undergraduates are going to be picking from a menu of available final projects, and you're going to implement that final project. Undergraduates, by the time we get to the 10th week, if you have an idea of your own, that's also fine. Come and see Krishna or I during our office hours to make sure it's a reasonable project that you can probably get done in about 4 weeks' time. Graduate students, how many graduate students are in this course? Quite a few. Okay. All right, so for the graduate students, you're going to be formulating your own research hypothesis. For those of you that are doing a thesis, come and see me, and hopefully we can find something that sort of aligns with your thesis. Any questions about that? So far, so good? Okay. Okay. As is life in the pandemic era, we have to juggle a whole bunch of online tools. I've tried to keep this to a minimum, but these are the 6 online tools you're going to be using in this course. All of the stuff that you're going to be graded on is going to be available on Blackboard. So if you're not sure what you're supposed to be doing or what you're supposed to be submitting, go to Blackboard. You can find everything there. It'll store materials. It's going to accept your work for grading and assessment. It's going to be used to administer quizzes, which we'll talk about in a moment, and so on. For real-time Q&A, I'm agnostic. We can use Teams, we can use Discord. I don't really care. Let me know what you want to use. We'll start with Teams, and if somebody posts something better and sets up a Discord, we'll switch to that. I don't care. Whatever is most comfortable for you as a class to chatter amongst yourselves and to talk with myself and the TA, that's fine with me. Okay. As I mentioned, I'm recording the lectures. I'll put them up on YouTube after class. You'll see in a moment that all of the programming projects are available in a particular subreddit called Ludobots. Ludo is Latin for play, so we're going to be playing with robots in this class. The reason why all of the programming projects are on Reddit is because there are 60 of you here at UVM that are taking this class, and I don't know how many other students online who are going to be shadowing you and also taking this class, but they're going to be taking it purely through Reddit. That's why the programming projects are on Reddit. Google Sheets is going to be used for taking attendance. Did I type the attendance sheet URL yet? I did not. Oh, sorry, there it is right there. It's on the board. Okay, so just make sure that you mark yourself as off if you haven't already. Please get out your phones. If you haven't, type in that URL, mark yourself as present, and then please stow away your phone or tablet or device when you're done with it. bit.ly/3 uppercase K, JHT, uppercase P, lowercase p. Did I get it right? Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks everyone. All right. Now that I've asked you to take out your devices, when you're done, please stow them away. This was a difficult decision to make, but a few years ago I made this a device-free zone. Generally speaking, the emerging literature on this suggests that students do better without devices in the classroom. It's a bit of a controversial issue, but there's a couple pointers there to some recent papers about it. That's the way we're going to do things. Okay, so let's talk about how this actually works. As I mentioned in lectures here, I'm going to record and post to YouTube right after class. During lecture, if you volunteer a question or you answer a question that I ask, I'm recording, so you're implicitly agreeing to be recorded, just so you know. Okay. Versions of the lecture slides, which we'll get to in a moment, they're posted online before class on the schedule. I'll switch to the schedule in a moment. So if you like to annotate, slides, you can print them out and bring them to class. Print them out before class, bring them to class. You can also take notes with pen and paper. You can also sit back and just listen to lecture and then annotate or take notes by watching the YouTube video after, whatever works best for you. I've tried to set up this course and note-taking and lectures and so on so that you're sort of taking notes as we go along. You're actually doing something as I lecture. Obviously, it's very easy to lean back and let your eyes glaze over and let the material flow over you. If you do that, you'll retain relatively little of the course material. Take notes however you want, but please do try and take notes. For the accommodation students, hopefully this obviates the need for a note taker in class. If you feel that you still need a note taker in class, let me know. Okay. There's an optional textbook for this class. Evolutionary robotics is a very, very small subfield inside of robotics as a whole. There's only one textbook, and it is now, how many years old is that? 13 years old. It's a little dated, so it's hard to find a good textbook for the class. We're going to use Bio-Inspired Artificial Intelligence by Floriano and Mattiusi. I will take selected readings from the textbook and put them up in the schedule as a PDF, so you do not need to buy the textbook for this course. There's a supplementary textbook for this book, for this course, that was co-authored by myself and Rolf Pfeiffer. It's also a little bit dated at this point. Thanks to the magic of academic publishing, if you happen to buy this book, I make a grand total of $1. There are 60 students in this class, so if I twist all your arms to buy this book, I will be $60 richer. No need to buy this book. If you do, obviously, I would be honored, but again, I will take selected readings from the book and post them in the schedule as PDFs. Okay. You'll see that there are also a lot of additional readings that I'm taking from the current literature. Evolutionary robotics is moving very fast. Some of the work we're going to talk about was published last month, so obviously a textbook is a little bit difficult. As I mentioned, this is a broad, not necessarily a deep course. We're going to be taking a lot of readings from different literatures, from the robotics literatures, the biology literatures, the AI literature. I will make all of that available for you as PDFs embedded in the schedule. Okay. Prerequisites. Hopefully all of you are junior and above. I have had to disenroll some of you because I try and make this course a priority for seniors or grad students for which this semester is their last chance to take this course. So if you're a junior and you find that I have to bump you, I will let you know, and obviously I will only do it if really, really necessary. But I think everything has stabilized at this point. Everybody that's here, I think will remain here. Okay. As I mentioned, programming experience is required. How much programming experience is required? I can't answer that for you. Get started on the programming project today or tomorrow or 2 days from now. Figure out for yourself whether you have enough programming experience for this course. Okay. Grading scheme, late policy. You're going to be submitting quizzes and programming projects all the way up until the exam period. If you submit stuff 1 day late, 25% off. 2 days late, 50% off. 3 days late, you can submit it if you want. You don't necessarily need to. Okay. We are approaching the 2-year mark for the pandemic. Everyone is tired. Everybody is burnt out. If you don't submit something and you tell me or the TA that the reason why you didn't submit something is that you're burnt out, we can't accept that. We can't accept that rationale. We are all burnt out. If you're struggling, please go see Student Services, and I'm sure we can make arrangements. Much easier to do that before something is due than it is a day after it's due, a week after it's due. I know it's difficult to juggle the pandemic and classes. Please do your best. If you're struggling, come see Krishna or come see myself, and let's make sure that we work together so that you don't fall behind. Seem reasonable? Okay, thanks everybody. Okay, so let's talk about the spine of this course, which are these 10 programming assignments. Item number 9 here. You'll notice they're worth 40% of your grade. This is obviously the bulk of the course. As I mentioned, over the next 10 weeks, you're going to be building a software platform that you will use in the final 4 weeks to do your final project. Okay, it's cumulative, so it's like a math class. If you fall behind on a particular week, the next week you have to submit that week's programming assignment and at least finish the one from the week before because it's cumulative. So like a math class, make sure that you stay on top of these assignments. Each assignment is due at 11:59 p.m. on Mondays. Don't leave it till Monday. Don't leave it to the night before. Don't leave it to the day before. Some of these programming projects, you'll find that you sail through them in half an hour. Others are going to take several hours. Again, depending on your relative strengths and weaknesses with coding. So just because 1 week it takes you half an hour, it doesn't mean the next week it's going to take you half an hour to do the programming project. I assign each programming project on Tuesdays, which gives you a full week to do them. We're going to talk about assignment 1 in a moment. I would suggest try and carve out some time today or tomorrow to at least start scanning through it and get a sense for how much work it's going to involve. Fair? Awesome. Okay. All right, quizzes. After class, after class, you'll see that there's a quiz on Blackboard that becomes live. That class should only take you about 10 minutes if you came to class and if you did the reading. It's usually like 2 multiple choice questions. Quizzes are super, super easy if you're keeping up with the material. The quizzes are designed not to be a pain in the butt. They're designed to be a gentle and continuous prod to keep up with the lecture material and the readings. That's why they're there. Okay. Each quiz is due by 11:59 p.m. on the day it's assigned. So you have quiz number 1 due tonight at 11:59 p.m. On Thursday, there'll be another quiz. Next Tuesday, there'll be another quiz, and so on. So every day that we have a lecture, there's a quiz due at 11:59 p.m. that night. All right? So hopefully Tuesdays and Thursdays, you carve out some time to come to class, do the readings, take the quiz, and you're good. Okay. Okay, final projects. As I mentioned, over the final 4 weeks of the semester, each student will use their software system to perform an experiment where you're going to be evolving robots. During that 4-week period, you're going to be submitting weekly deliverables. So every week you're submitting something. The first 10 weeks, it's programming projects. The last 4 weeks, it's deliverables. Those deliverables are going to be designed by you to demonstrate to us how much progress you've made towards your final project. So you're going to break your final project down into 4 steps, and you're going to do each of those 4 steps over those final 4 weeks, right? Again, designed to make sure that you keep working on your final project and don't try and do it all the night before. Yeah, we'll spread out the pain. Okay. Let's see. You're also, at the very end of this course, you'll be submitting a written report that describes your experiment. And you'll also be giving an oral presentation during the exam period. There is no midterm and there is no final exam in this course. Your quote-unquote final exam is orally presenting your final project. I'm not sure how we're going to do it under the under these circumstances. What we did in the before times is each student would come up to the front of the class during the 3-hour exam period. You'd have a grand total of 2 minutes and 30 seconds to play a 2-minute and 30-second YouTube video, and you would talk over your YouTube video showing myself and all your fellow students what you did. You'd sit back down, next student comes up, 2.5 minutes times 60 more or less fills our 3-hour period. We'll figure out how to do this when we get towards the final project, but just keep in mind, you're going to be talking over your own homemade YouTube video for about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That's what your quote-unquote final exam is going to be. All good? Okay. Okay. I already mentioned about the graduate students. Okay, participation. Class participation counts towards your final grade. Students are permitted to miss up to and including 3 classes. If you find that you're missing 4 or more classes, come and see me and we'll try and figure something out. How do we do attendance? If you're here in person, I will put up the URL, get out your phone, tap yourself as present, phone away, we're all good. For those that are watching the recorded lecture after the fact, if you want to take this course remotely, you watch the YouTube video that's recorded. Somewhere in that YouTube video, the URL will show up. Pause the YouTube video, go to the attendance sheet, mark yourself as present, go back to the YouTube video, and carry on. Again, it's a little bit of a hack, but this was my best attempt to make sure that you can come in person or take this course remotely, and it more or less balances out. Yes, question?
Up to when do you have to see the YouTube video?
Yeah, you can watch the YouTube video whenever you want, but remember that the YouTube video is going to help you take the quiz, which is due at 11:59 p.m. tonight. If you don't come to class and if you don't watch the YouTube video, it's going to be very hard to take the quiz. So I would suggest sometime this afternoon or this evening, for those of you that aren't here in person, you watch the video, then go take the quiz. If you have the lecture materials fresh in your mind and you just finished the reading, you should be able to take the quiz in about 10 minutes. Make sense? Obviously, the videos are there on YouTube forever. You can go back and watch old videos at your leisure. Any other questions or comments at this point? No? All good? Okay. I think I just said all of this. Yeah, okay, so that's the syllabus. Any questions about the syllabus before we switch to the schedule? Nope? Okay. Okay, at the beginning of class, every morning, I will put up the schedule, and it's designed to let you see at a glance where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. You'll notice that this course is divided into a number of themes: introduction, the tools of the trade, history, challenges, collective robotics, evolving bodies and brains. These are the major topics that we're going to be looking at in this course. These are the major topics that we're going to be looking at this course. There's a few lectures per theme. You'll notice that the link for today's lecture deck is now live in cell E5 there. That's the slide deck. You'll notice that to the right of it, VO1, when I record the lecture and I put it up on YouTube, I will link the YouTube video to VO1 there. When the quiz becomes live on the schedule, I will provide the Blackboard link to the quiz to Q01 and so on. So you can either keep an eye on the schedule. When you see a link appear, you can go watch the video, go take the quiz, and so on. And there's a link there also to the reading for today. No, that's not it. Sorry, that's a little small. I will read column J there. That's the assignment that is assigned at each point. So you'll notice in column J, in cell J5 there's a link to assignment 1 with instructions about assignment 1. And you will notice that assignment 1 is due at 11:59 p.m. next Monday. I've also put a link to assignment 2 for those that want to run ahead. That's fine as well. I'm going to talk about assignment 1 now. Next Tuesday, I will talk about assignment 2 when it's officially assigned, and so on. All good? Okay, so let's talk about assignments. First, okay, as I mentioned, there's a number of online tools that come together here. This can be a little confusing at the beginning, but hopefully you'll get used to this, and there's a reason for it. As you just saw, all of the assignments are available either from the schedule or directly from Blackboard. If you click on Blackboard, you'll see in the course materials, there's a folder called Assignments. Inside that folder, there is an assignment 1. If you click on that link, assignment 1, it will take you to Reddit. And as I mentioned, there is a subreddit that contains all of the actual assignment instructions. In assignment 1, it's broken up into a number of modules. Module A is a very simple set of instructions about how to install some software. And I will show you that one here. It's going to be tricky to do together. Okay, So here is Module A, which is part of Assignment 1. It is made up of a grand total of 2 instructions. Step 1, make sure that you have Python 3 on your local machine. Step 2, type pip3 install pybullet. That's it. Again, for most of you, it should take 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. For those of you that aren't familiar with pip, go watch an online tutorial to find out what pip is if you've never used it before, get comfortable with it, and then pip install pybullet. We're going to use a lot of different online tools. We're going to use Git, we're going to use pip, we're going to use various Python libraries. This is a junior or senior and above course. I am not going to teach you pip. I am not going to teach you GitHub. If there's something that's unfamiliar to you, the internet probably has the answer. Go find an online tutorial and teach yourself. That's one of the reasons why I suggest starting all these weekly programming projects early. You might come across some tools that you've never used before. You'll need to teach yourself that tool before you use it correctly for the course. Yep? Okay. Okay, once you finish Module A, you're going to be going to Git or GitHub. How many of you have used Git or GitHub before? Okay, almost all of you. That's great. If you have not used Git or GitHub before, I would suggest go watch an online tutorial. We're going to make extensive use of Git and GitHub in this course. Git and GitHub is designed as a code versioning system. So it's going to you're going to use it to control all of your code. If you come to Krishna or I halfway through the semester and say, my laptop died and I lost all my code, that was a reasonable excuse in the pre-Git era. In the current era, that's no longer an excuse. Make good use of Git so that you can track all of your work. If you start in on a given weekly programming project and get hopelessly lost, in Git, you can roll back to the previous week and start again, right? Okay, so you're going to be creating a repository that's going to hold all of your code for this course. CS206 seems like a reasonable name, but you can call your repository whatever you want. When you finish Module A, you will move on in the subreddit to Module B. So Assignment 1 is made up of 2 modules, A and B. In Module B, you're going to be creating an empty virtual world, an empty simulation. I just mentioned there's one instruction in Module A, pip3 install pybullet. Pybullet is the physics engine that we're going to be using in this course. Module A, you're installing pybullet. And in Module B, you're going to be using pybullet to create an empty world that will open up in a window on your laptop. At the end of Module B, there's going to be instructions telling you to screen capture your screen, showing you navigating a virtual camera through this virtual world. You can capture it with screen capture software on your laptop. You can point your phone at your screen. We don't care. Just make a video, upload it to YouTube. And all of this is described actually in the Ludobots instructions. You're going to be creating a YouTube video. For all the UVM students that are here today, you're going to be submitting that YouTube video into Reddit, a Reddit submission. And then you're going to be submitting the URL for that Reddit submission back into Blackboard. So Blackboard, Reddit, laptop, YouTube, Reddit, back to Blackboard. Seems like a pain in the butt. Again, there's a reason for that. Yes?
Are your Reddit submissions private, or can everybody see them?
All of your Reddit submissions are public. Everyone can see them. So if you have a non-anonymous Reddit handle, I would suggest you create a burner account. Create an anonymous Reddit account and use that. If you don't care, then go ahead. It's perfectly fine. All of the stuff you're going to be submitting online, there are ways for you to do it anonymously. If you don't know how to submit work anonymously to Reddit or YouTube, come and see Krishna and I, and we can help you with that. So everyone can see everybody else's submissions on Reddit. You are not submitting code in this class. No one is submitting code and copying everybody else's code. The only thing you're submitting in this class is videos and images that demonstrate that your code is working correctly. Yeah? So Krishna and I and everyone else in the subreddit will be able to see by looking at your video whether there's something wonky in your code, and that's how Krishna and I will help you if something isn't working. Come and see us. Any questions about that? As I mentioned, there are online students that are shadowing all the UVM students here. They are taking and submitting their quote-unquote homework on Reddit. They are obviously not submitting their work to Blackboard. Blackboard is there so that we can formally assess the UVM students' work. Make sense? Any questions? Again, it seems a bit of an indirect process, but there's good reason for it. Okay. All right, so when you finished Module A and you started on Module B, what I suggest is you create branches that track each of your modules so that if something goes wrong in one of your modules and you get hopelessly lost and you want to roll things back, the easiest way to do so is to go back to your previous branch. If Git branches is a new concept to you, get on YouTube, find an online tutorial and teach yourself about maintaining Git branches. I would suggest naming the branches to follow the names of the modules. You're going to be creating an empty simulation in Module B, create a new branch from CS206 main called simulation. As I just mentioned, when you finish Module B, you're going to be creating you're going to be creating a video, upload that video to YouTube, submit that YouTube link to Reddit, and when you move on to Module C there, same thing. You create a YouTube video, post it to Reddit, submit it back to Blackboard, and around we go. All good? Okay, that's the assignments. Any questions about the assignments, programming projects? All good? Okay, so that's a lot of dry material. Let's take a pause for a moment and actually talk about evolutionary robotics, and then we'll get back to logistics. Okay, so what is this course about? We already mentioned this a little bit, the autonomous design of autonomous machines. Let me take you back to the beginning of 2020. In January 2020, an online media source, at the end of 2020, one online media source reported these as the 4 biggest scientific breakthroughs of 2020. There's an image here meant to represent either literally or metaphorically what that scientific advance was. Anybody recognize any of these? Yes?
B is AlphaFold.
B is AlphaFold. So you're looking at a protein in B. There is the protein folding problem, which is if you take a polypeptide or a string of colored beads, there is a specific 3D shape that polypeptide will fold into. And it turns out that you can, in theory, predict, given the peptides along that polypeptide, exactly what 3D shape it will fold into. It's a problem that has withstood solving for many, many decades. Humans have gotten better and better at it, but we're still pretty bad at it. Google's DeepMind, their research wing of Google, introduced AlphaFold, an AI program that can take as input a sequence of peptides and predict the 3D shape much better than any human research team has been able to do so far. What that means for biology and particularly for medicine will be pretty exciting. Most people agree there's going to be some very deep implications, some advances for medicine because of that. How about some of these others? Yes?
Is D Xenobots?
D is Xenobots. It was my honor and privilege to be one of the 4 members of the Xenobots team. The coder and the main coder and person responsible for all the AI and simulation and evolutionary robotics work in the Xenobots project is Sam Kriegman. Sam was my PhD student. He took this course 6 years ago. He's now a postdoc at Harvard. Obviously, I'm hopelessly biased, but I hope xenobots will also have important implications for biology, medicine, robotics, technology in general as the years go on. I hope that in another 7 years from now, there's another slide up here and I am singing some of your praises as well. Evolutionary robotics, as you'll see, is a pretty young field. Again, I'm hopelessly biased because I work in this field, but I think evolutionary robotics is also going to provide some pretty interesting discoveries and useful tools in the years to come. How about A or C? Yes? It's, absolutely, right? So that's the coronavirus itself. It's meant to represent the discovery of the first COVID vaccine in 2020. Kind of a big deal. What about C? Cast your minds all the way back to 2020. No? What planet are we looking at there? Any space nerds here? No? Somebody said Venus. Yes, it is Venus. It was reported in the scientific literature in 2020 the detection of phosphine gas in the atmosphere of Venus. As far as us humans know, there is only one process that produces phosphine, and it's bacteria. Turns out, in the 2 years since, the scientific community has weighed in, and the evidence seems to be suggesting that there probably isn't phosphine gas in the atmosphere of Venus, but it's still being debated in the scientific literature. Kind of an interesting result in and of itself. Okay. So just to give you a sense of sort of what was happening in 2020, as I mentioned, evolutionary robotics is a very recent, field. Hopefully there's some big discoveries out there to be made in this field. Some of you may make them. Okay. Let's talk a little bit now about the why of evolutionary robotics. And let's start with the why of robots. Why create robots in the first place? Or as we're going to do in this course, why evolve or automatically design robots? Got 4 images up on the board here. What is the, let me maximize this so you can see a little better. What's the difference between the top pair of images and the bottom pair of images?
Manufacturing.
Sorry?
Manufacturing and construction.
So we have manufacturing in the top pair of images and construction in the bottom pair of images.
The introduction of robotics.
It's the introduction of robotics in the upper case, but not in the lower case. You walk into any modern factory in the West, you will see more robots than people. The image in the bottom right there, I took that back on UVM's campus in 2007. It's still true today. You walk onto any construction site, you'll see more people than robots. Why? What's the difference?
Variability of the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Variability of the work. So over 2,000 years ago, the Greek philosopher Heraclitus is attributed to have said, "Man never enters the same river twice." Factories were actually invented to create a controlled environment so that the industrial robot in a controlled environment, in a factory, is free to do exactly the same thing over and over again. Actually, if we go to the top left image for a moment, over 100 years ago, Henry Ford introduced the idea of mass production. So instead of one craftsperson constructing an entire artifact like a basket or a motorcycle, Henry Ford realized that you could produce more baskets or more motorcycles if you had a whole bunch of specialists who added one piece to a machine. And that specialization or that systematization of the way that we build things indoors, mass production, many, many decades later was automated. So top left is systematization of indoor work. Top right is automation of indoor work. Obviously, both mass production and industrial robotics were invented to make sure that we can produce much more stuff more cheaply. Looking back from the 2020s, whether that is still a good idea, not sure, right? That's created a lot of the problems we're currently wrestling with. But if you want to try and produce more stuff faster and more cheaply, systematization, then automation seems to be the way to go. That has not worked out so far for the way that we build things indoors. The construction of outdoor things like buildings, like this particular building, it took a very long time to build because it was actually all done by hand. Obviously, on a construction site, there are machines, but they are not autonomous machines. They are machines that are remote controlled, or actually controlled by an in-person operator. And as was just mentioned, the reason why we have not managed to deploy robots at outdoor environments is because on any given day, as Heraclitus reminded us, conditions are different. You're all seasoned students. You've probably sat in hundreds of classrooms, listened to thousands of lectures. They're all generally kind of the same. There's someone at the front of the class droning on. You're trying your best to pay attention and listen and follow. But the particular conditions are always different. You usually are not aware of it, but you're effortlessly adapting. I am standing here rather than standing here today. You all rolled with the punches, and we've carried on. It turns out that animals and humans are very good at being able to never step into the same river twice. We are not yet able to make robots that are able to grapple with constant change, which is what you find in outdoor environments. So we can create autonomous machines, like the industrial robots you see in the top right. What we cannot create is autonomous and adaptive machines, machines that operate on their own and alter their operations as conditions require. It is a wide open problem in robotics. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe what Boston Dynamics tells you, what iRobot tells you, whatever whatever Elon Musk tells you. Robotics is still in its infancy. There are probably 60, 80, 100 computers in this room at the moment. How many autonomous robots do you see? There are none. Robotics is super, super hard, and you're going to get a sense from a first-person perspective in this course on why robotics is hard. Okay, so back to this question of why robotics. We can one rationale is purely economic. If we want to reduce the cost of building buildings, building roads, building bridges, it would be great if that could be done by robots instead of people. That's an economic rationale. There is obviously a moral dimension to robotics and AI in general, which is machines, generally speaking, replace people. Whether that is a good thing or a bad thing is another important question, and we'll talk about the ethics of robotics towards the end of this course. Okay, so that's an engineering or an economics rationale for robots. There is also a scientific rationale for why to study robots, which is that robots are many things. One of the things that they are that people miss is that they are mirrors. They hold up a mirror to us and they challenge us. They challenge our preconceptions about what intelligence really is. So again, robotics is in its infancy, and the study of intelligence is also in its infancy. Don't believe what the neuroscientists tell you. Don't believe what the cognitive scientists tell you. We have basically no idea why you're able to adapt to a new classroom and a new instructor and a new circumstance. Hopefully, robots will be a new scientific tool for studying the nature of intelligence. At the moment, we can only really study intelligence as it is. We have one intelligent species assembled here in the classroom today. Depending on your viewpoints, there's some other intelligent species on this planet as well, but that's about it. As far as we know, we're alone in the universe. Can we create other machines, other devices, other organisms, as you'll see in the case of the xenobots? Can we create other intelligent artifacts that also act intelligently, but maybe they act intelligently in different ways from the ways that humans do, or primates do, or mammals do, if you like. And if we could create multiple instances of diverse intelligence, Taken together, we might be able to see what's common across all of these intelligent artifacts and really start to get at a rigorous and deep understanding of intelligence as it can be. We're not there yet, but that's hopefully where we're headed. Okay, if you look at a lot of the other branches of natural sciences, they have kind of a guiding principle. Biology is not solved, chemistry is not solved, physics is not solved, but some of the important pieces have already been worked out. There's a famous quote from Evolutionary biology that nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. Evolution helps unite a lot of the data that's collected in biology and guides our investigations into biology. In physics, we're guided by the twin foundations of Newtonian and quantum mechanics. Those two pieces of formalism guide the kinds of questions that we ask. There is also a guiding theory or principle in chemistry. What is it? What guides the kinds of questions that are asked in chemistry? It's not the Wild West. We understand a fair bit about chemistry. And entropy and thermodynamics, yeah, those are great. Those could also be candidates. They kind of span chemistry and physics. What are some other guiding principles in chemistry? If you can remember back to high school chemistry or high school science, what was one of the very first things you were taught about chemistry? What was one of the first things that was probably flashed up on the board?
The periodic table.
The periodic table. If you think about it, it's pretty amazing that all of the elements that are out there, they actually have this underlying relationship that can be put into this nice little table. There's some guiding structure, it seems, to the elements in the universe. So in all of these branches of natural sciences, there's sort of this underlying guiding structure. In the study of intelligence, there is no such guiding structure. We really do not understand what's going on between your ears. We could use as many different ideas and as many different tools, like robots, to guide our study of intelligence. Again, I'm biased, but I believe there are several Nobel Prizes waiting to be won in the study of intelligence. Maybe one of you will be so lucky in the years to come. Okay, so that's another rationale for why we study robots. We'd like to make robots that not only are useful, like we saw in the previous slide, but are also scientifically useful. They give us new ways to study the nature of intelligence. One of the other things that's interesting about robotics, I think, is that it is probably the most interdisciplinary field you're ever going to come across. I challenge you to think of another course here at UVM that's going to require some understanding of this broad a set of topics. We're going to evolve robots in this course, so we need to understand evolutionary biology a little bit. We'll look at that. Our robots are going to be controlled by neural networks, which are pieces of code that are models of nervous tissue. So we're going to look at, we're going to draw some inspiration from neuroscience. Hopefully our robots are going to sense, think, act a little bit. So we need to study the nature of thinking, which will take us into cognitive science and possibly psychology if we're talking about human types of thinking. I already mentioned biomechanics, the nature of how animals move. You're going to be playing with the physics engine in this course, so we're going to have to do a little bit of Newtonian mechanics. We won't do too much, we'll do a little bit. We're going to do a lot of coding in this class. We're going to use object-oriented programming, classes, inheritance. It's going to be quite a bit of computer science in this course. In this course, you're only going to be building virtual robots. You are not going to be building physical robots. If we were, we would also be studying mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. In the case of the xenobots, bioengineering. How do we build autonomous machines out of living tissue? This is a brand new idea that's only 2 years old. We're still playing around with how to do that using bioengineering. Towards the end of the class, we're going to look at soft robots. These are robots that are not made from metal. They're made from plastics, silicone, metal foams. We're going to look at some very exotic materials, which is going to take us into chemistry. There's a fair bit of math when we're coding and doing evolutionary robotics. And finally, as I mentioned, if robots are a mirror that is held up to us to challenge our preconceptions of what intelligence is or what mind is, That's going to take us into the study of the philosophy of mind. You will probably find yourself in many points in this course kind of laughing at these poor robots that are clearly unintelligent. They are not making decisions. They are not planning ahead. They do not have clear memories. They do not have a plan for the future. And you will sit back in your seat comfortably aware of the fact that you make decisions, you plan ahead, you have clear memories, you have a sense of self, you have a sense of free will, you are conscious, you have emotions. I am going to bet that for many of you, you're not going to be so clear about those concepts by the end of this course. So be ready for that. Okay. Okay, back to the practicalities of robotics for a moment. Obviously, we are facing some pretty hairy global problems at the moment. Many of them can be traced back to the way that we power our civilization. We as a society are currently trying to find a way forward in a low carbon or carbon-free way. If you look at most of the energy projects that are either on the whiteboards or already being tried out, a lot of those energy solutions have a common form. Regardless of whether we're talking about wind farms, solar farms, wave farms, tide farms, they are all very large collections of machines that span a very large area, and by definition, they need to be outside. Unlike an autonomous robot operating at a construction site, a given tide worm or wave worm that you see in the bottom right, or a wind turbine, they also face environmental variability, maybe not as much as a construction site, but each one of these machines, in order to be economically advantageous, they need to adapt a little bit to their environment. At the moment, we are designing, building, deploying, and testing these by hand. The manual design of autonomous machines. Are these the best ways to collect the sun, the wind, the tide, the wave? Probably not. There are probably better ways to do it. Could we, moving forward, automate the design of autonomous energy harvesting machines? Nobody's tackled that yet, but again, I think this could be a killer app for evolutionary robotics. Okay, I mentioned one student who took this course, the co-inventor of Xenobot, Sam Kriegman, who took this course 7 years ago. 10 years ago, another undergraduate took this course, who went on after graduating from UVM to work at NASA Ames in Silicon Valley. NASA Ames is NASA's facility for basic research, and where they do a lot of early prototyping for next generation robot probes. So probes that might be sent to the outer solar system 10 years, 15, 20 years from now. One design that is currently actually doing pretty well at NASA Ames is this. It says already on the slide what it is. This is a tensegrity robot. This is a tensegrity toy. I borrowed this from my 5-month-old son this morning. He let me bring it to class. As you can hopefully see from this tensegrity structure, it's made up of a bunch of rigid beams, and pairs of rigid beams are attached together with elastics so that it is dynamically in tension. One of the nice things about a tensegrity is you can deform it and it will passively return to its default shape. At NASA, they are trying to roboticize this principle of tensegrity, and I will play the video for you.
We're investigating how to use these really...
I'm going to just mute this here. You'll notice that the rigid beams in this toy have been replaced with motors that shorten and lengthen these rigid beams, which allows this tensegrity to become active and start moving. What you're going to see in a moment is one of the reasons why NASA likes tensegrity. Imagine that ball in the middle is a scientific instrument. You'll notice that it has a very gentle deceleration when this tensegrity robot comes into contact with the ground. The student that took this class 10 years ago, Nick Cheney, he went on to go work at NASA Ames on the early stages of this tensegrity robot. You can go Google it. There's some more recent videos of the progress that's being made. After finishing up with NASA Ames, Nick went on to do a PhD at Cornell University in the aerospace engineering department there. Nick was hired here at UVM a few years back, and Professor Cheney now teaches the evolutionary computation course. So again, to give you a sense of some of the things that you can do after this course. Another thing I want you to note about the tensegrity robot is it is a very non-intuitive design. If I told you that you could write some code that would shorten and lengthen these rigid rods, and I want you to write some code that shortens and lengthens these rods to cause the robot to drive over there, or drive over there, or drive over there, it is next to impossible. At least for me, I've tried. It's very difficult. What you're going to see over and over again in this course is that we often turn over the non-intuitive aspects of robot design to an evolutionary algorithm. If the design process is intuitive, if we have a four-legged robot and it makes sense for the robot to move its four legs like we see in nature, you probably don't need an evolutionary algorithm. You can probably do most of it by hand. If you want to create something that's useful but non-intuitive, you usually need to hand over the design process to an AI, which in this course is going to be an evolutionary algorithm. Okay. Okay, so again, we're looking at evolutionary robotics from sort of a 10,000-foot view today. In all the evolutionary robotics experiments that you see, there are going to be sort of four basic ingredients that are going to appear over and over again. First of all, we need some task environment in which the robot is going to operate. In the case of the tensegrity robot, it was a simulation of the surface of some planetary body or moon. Could be a simulated construction site, could be a physical construction site. We're going to see some examples of robots that are evolved directly in the real world without recourse to a simulator. Regardless of whether it's simulated or physical, we need some definition of the robot's task environment. We need a robot itself, obviously. In this course, most or all of the robots are going to be controlled by an artificial neural network. For those that know a little bit about neural networks, they usually have input neurons or an input layer. Some stuff happens in the middle, and then there's an output layer. In our case, the robot sensors are going to be connected to the neural network input layer. Values are going to flow from the sensors to the input layer, down through the ANN to the output layer, and the values arriving at the output layer are going to be transformed into commands that are sent to the robot's motors that cause it to move. The robot moves, sensor values change, input neuron values change, output neuron values change, motor commands change, sensor values change, input changes, output changes, motors change, and around we go. We are then going to wrap those first three elements in an evolutionary algorithm that is going to optimize or tinker with the artificial neural network so that the robot performs some desired task in its environment. And I will play this example for you. What you're going to watch in this video is one robot, but at each flash, you're watching a different artificial neural network controlling the robot. And you'll notice each one of these brains causes the robot to do something slightly different. What is it that we're evolving the robot to do in this case?
Pick up the block.
Pick up the block. So what you're watching is some snapshots that are taken from an evolutionary algorithm. The evolutionary algorithm is searching over the space of all possible brains or ANNs for this robot, and it's searching for those that get the robot to do what we want it to do. I'm going to now speed up this video And we're now watching a much longer evolutionary process. The very first 1 second was the entire video on the left. As this robot is evolving, when it gets good at grasping the object, we change the task environment. How are we changing the task environment?
Moving the box further away.
We're moving the box further away, which makes the task a little bit harder. What we told the evolutionary algorithm to do in this case is evolve an ANN for the robot so that it picks up the block. We told the evolutionary algorithm what we want the robot to do, but we did not tell the evolutionary algorithm how we want the robot to do it. The reason why is in many of these cases, we don't know how the robot should do whatever we want it to do. What solutions is evolution discovering along the way? How to walk. We never told the evolutionary algorithm, evolve a robot that walks. The evolutionary algorithm obviously discovered this on its own. What are some other interesting things or funny things you notice in this video?
It tries to like grab at air.
Sorry?
It tries to grab at nothing before it successfully grabs the block.
Yeah, you'll notice that it's sort of trying to grasp in general, which is kind of a good strategy. If you keep doing this, eventually, if you're walking forward, it's going to bump into the block. What else is happening?
It definitely kind of made like an endless cycle that it's following where it's like step, step, grab, step, step, grab. So it's like it doesn't matter how far the block is, eventually if it keeps repeating that, it would reach it, so long as it's in front of it.
Absolutely, as long as it's in front of it, right? So there's very little environmental variability here. So the evolutionary algorithm is exploiting the consistency of its environment, which sometimes, depending on the task, sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing, right? It's kind of a non-intuitive solution. If I asked you to program this robot, you'd probably program it to step, 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 grasp, right? So in retrospect, it's starting to come up with some non-obvious solutions. What else is kind of surprising or funny in this video?
It looks like it's sort of trying to use the momentum with its arms by like pushing itself up with them.
Absolutely. So the momentum of its arm is actually part of the gait, part of the way that it's walking. You'll notice that in some cases it grabs the block and kind of throws it onto its back. The fitness function or the objective function, the way in which the computer is scoring each of these ANNs is it's looking for a minimum distance between the blue block and that gray bulb on the robot's back. That's all we asked it to do. We never said hold on to the object, or we never said walk to the object and then pick it up. Grasping and then throwing this object onto its back, it's in retrospect probably not what we wanted. If you try and evolve a robot to do what you want, but you don't tell it how to do it, you're often going to get solutions in retrospect that are not exactly what you wanted. This is known in AI as perverse instantiation. The evolutionary algorithm can't talk, but if it could, it would probably say, I did exactly what you asked me to do. Another way to think about evolutionary robotics or evolutionary algorithms is they're often like teenagers. They'll do what we want, what we asked, but not in the way that we wanted them to do it. Again, not necessarily a good thing. How to manage perverse instantiation in AI is an open problem. No one, again, don't believe the hype. Nobody has a good solution to that quite yet. Okay, we have 5 minutes left, so just back to some boring logistics for a moment. There's an attendance sheet and a participation grade on purpose. I found out over the years that students that either come to class in person or follow along with the video lectures tend to do better in this class. So again, I understand the attendance sheet is a bit of a pain in the butt, but it's there as a gentle and continuous prod to make sure that you keep coming to class in person or remotely. Okay. Just a little bit about me. I mentioned evolutionary robotics is an interdisciplinary study. I got my undergraduate in computer science back in Canada. I went to go work for a year and realized that industry was not the place for me, so I came back to academia. I did a master's in what's known as the Evolutionary and Adaptive Systems program, or the EASY program at Sussex University in the UK. It is definitely not an easy program. They take half computer scientists and half biologists. The computer scientists are thrown into a wet lab to do dissections, and the biologists are thrown into coding classes to learn how to code. Both groups suffer equally and quite a bit. At the end of the EASY course, you're thrown together and you have to do a final project that's at the intersection of computer science and biology. In my case, I learned about this new field known as evolutionary robotics, which actually started at Sussex University in the early 90s, and I've never looked back. I went on to continue my PhD in evolutionary robotics in Switzerland. I spent 3 years at Cornell University working on a NASA project, not the tensegrity robot that I just showed you, a different robot, which we'll talk about in a few weeks' time. And I'm now here. Okay, a little bit about expectations. I like this class to be as interactive as possible. Thank you for offering questions and comments so far. Please stop me at any point, ask a question, lob a criticism, no problem. Obviously, this is much more fun if this is a discussion rather than me lecturing at you for 75 minutes. Common sense, regular but not necessarily perfect attendance. I already mentioned that. You're going to do a lot of coding. I don't know what the final line count is for most of these projects, but it definitely runs into the thousands, if not tens of thousands of lines of code. You do a lot of coding, start early on all the projects. I expect a memorization of key concepts. There's no, all the quizzes are open book. There's no midterm, there's no final exam, so there's no real way for me to incentivize that. The reason why I ask you to try and memorize the key concepts that we talk about along the way is that job interviews are closed book. For those that are graduating, some of you may get a job interview at Google in the summer or the fall. Among other things, they'll ask you about courses you took as an undergraduate. You might mention evolutionary robotics. They might say, what's that? You might show them a video of one of your final project and explain to the Google recruiters what basic concept that evolved robot is demonstrating. That will go a long way in a job interview. So what I expect in this course is that you absorb the key concepts. We're going to talk about dozens and dozens of robots and evolutionary algorithms and ANNs. I don't expect you to remember all the details. Every project we look at is meant to demonstrate and reinforce one of these basic concepts. I don't expect you to remember the tensegrity robot, but the tensegrity robot was an example of non-intuitive design. Tensegrity robots are non-intuitive. It's very difficult to see how to manually turn this thing into a robot. Yeah? Okay. In the final project, you'll have lots of opportunity to be creative and try out ideas of your own. Self-learning, if you don't know what Git is, go watch an online tutorial. Positive attitude, I think, goes without saying. Okay. What you cannot expect from me or the TA is to come to our office hours and say, my code is crashing. We don't know why your code is crashing any better than you do. We also cannot help you with learning a programming language or installing software. Google is way better at teaching you that than we are. Okay, what you can expect is help with specific programming questions. I used to teach this course in C++. In C++, you have to do your own allocation and deallocation of memory. This is a difficult concept for a lot of people. Happy to talk about some of the philosophy under how we're coding up the projects. But again, I assume that you do your own Googling first. Everything in this course is in Python. If you're a little rusty with Python, I would suggest going to Codecademy or some other online coding academy and brush up on your Python skills, especially this week and next week before things get busy. I'm happy, Christian and I are happy to go over any conceptual issues with you in office hours. I'm happy to clarify questions about assignments and projects. We talked about assignment 1. We'll talk about assignment 2 on Tuesday. Ask questions then, ask questions in office hours. Finally, just to finish up for today, emphasis on concepts, not memorization of all details of specific tools. Make sure you mark yourself as present for today. There will be a quiz that will drop at around 10 a.m. Today. It is due by 11:59 p.m. I will see you back here Thursday morning. Thanks very much, everybody.